Hey, this is former Blue Devil O-lineman Matt Skura. You're listening to Basketball Conference, the ACC football podcast. Go Duke, go ACC.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Basketball Conference, the ACC football podcast. My name is Joey Weaver, kicking off the 2025 season preview series, looking to talk about the Syracuse Orange. Joined today by Mr. Javon Edmonds, Syracuse.com, covering all things Orange athletics. Javon, it's great to meet you. Welcome to the program. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Fans of the Basketball Conference, please. My audio quality today is going to be the worst it ever is when I join this podcast. I'm not in my Syracuse apartment. I'm back home in Baltimore for the weekend. I do not have my equipment with me. I've got pretty much a whole radio station set up. So I promise you, this is the worst you will ever hear me.
Well, don't worry, Javon. The long-time listeners of this program are well familiar with horrible audio quality. So you're among friends here. You're in good shape. Javon, we're excited to have you on here talking about Syracuse and getting into this season. We're going to start getting into, I guess, year two here of Fran Brown. Year one, hard to say it's anything but a success. They went 9-3, had a very good year, pulled off the upset against Miami there at the end of the regular season. By and large, seemed like a rousing success. I'm curious to your take on the fans' reception of Fran going into the season, and then just reactions as the season went on, and then I guess the way that there were some, I guess what I'll call like off-field antics of sorts. There were a lot of sound bites from Fran. Basically, he kind of got into the thing with Brent Key earlier in the year. There was the whole winners get washed situation that came up later in the year. I'm just kind of curious to hear your take on the fans' reception of him as year one kind of went and took its course.
Yeah, one thing I quickly learned, the fans love him in Syracuse. Fans love Fran wherever he goes. Number one, because he brings good players to their program. Fran Brown's the reason Temple was the Group of Five leader for so long in NFL products. Matt Rule owes a great deal of his success at Baylor to Fran Brown. Rutgers, same thing. Kirby Smart at Georgia, same thing. And now up in Syracuse, they just landed a 5-star wide receiver from Miami Northwestern in Calvin Russell III. So fans love Fran wherever he goes because he instantly upgrades their team. He brings talent. And then number two, because the guy's quotable. I will say Fran Brown is like, you got media trained and then you've got naturals. He's just a natural. Like, he knows the media game. He knows what's going to generate a headline, and it just comes to him just like that. So that is going to be one of the stories of his career, is that guy always had a headline for you.
And there were definitely a good handful of those moments last year for sure. And obviously, that stuff goes a lot better when you're winning, right? Like, and I imagine that's where fans, there's no concerns if your team is winning the way that they won there in year one. Was curious to get your take here, Javon, on the quarterback situation. A big piece of Syracuse winning at the level that they did in 2024 was the play of Kyle McCord. As a Georgia Tech fan, I saw it up front, up close as he got really hot against Georgia Tech and basically won them that game. There were a number of games that he played very, very well and really kind of dragged that team at times to a victory. He's gone. He was drafted. I honestly thought he was drafted kind of low. I think he was like a 5th-round pick. Like, I thought he would be earlier than that. Replacing him, though, so they got the transfer Ricky Collins coming in from LSU. I think he went with Fran Brown to media days here earlier this week.
Yeah.
They also got Steve Angeli, the transfer in from Notre Dame. That was a post-spring transfer. Curious to get your take on the situation. Is the thought that Collins, being the guy that was at media days and such, like, is this his job to lose? Is Angeli just assumed to be the backup again, like he was at Notre Dame, or is it more complicated than that?
So this is a full-on quarterback competition. Ricky Collins left LSU because he already had to sit behind Jaden Daniels, and he had to sit behind Garrett Nussmeier. And then 2025 is supposed to be his year. Then Garrett Nussmeier, who I thought was a first rounder this year, decides he wants to come back for his last year at LSU. So, Ricky Collins is like, I've got to play eventually, and transfers to Syracuse.
And that's a big move,
So
by
while
the way,
that's happening,
he's a Baton Rouge native too. So that's a big move for him.
So while that's happening, Ricky was actually with them for the Holiday Bowl, I want to say. Not long after that is that Rose Bowl game between Penn State and Notre Dame, where Steve Angeli becomes a national name. And Fran Brown said this Wednesday at ACC kickoffs. Like, I was at home watching the kid, and I said to myself, if he enters the portal, I'm on him. And it helps that Steve played for quarterbacks coach Nunzio Campanelli's brother Vito at Bergen Catholic over there in Oradell, New Jersey. So Angeli was going to wind up at Syracuse. Ricky Collins was, once I heard Nussmeier was going back to LSU, I knew Collins would portal. I didn't think Syracuse would be the team. To be honest, I thought he was going to stay down south. So that says enough about Fran right there. And, it's a full-on battle. And one thing about Ricky, he has embraced it. Like, he understands Fran's got to do what's best for the team. And competition is the spirit of Syracuse right now. And it's only going to make him better. And he's welcomed it on. And the thing about the duel is it's been fair. Like, Angeli's past with the Campanelli family has not garnered any favoritism or anything. It has been fair and down the middle, which is something that Collins appreciates tremendously. Nunzio Campanelli actually, he goes out of his way to try to stay away from the kids that have played for his brothers because he wants to avoid that conflict of interest. So it's going to be an exciting duel throughout August, and we'll see who wins when they're getting ready for practice, a week, what's that, the 23rd, 24th, August 25th, when they're officially getting ready for Tennessee.
I had not realized the the quarterback's coach was Nunzio Campanile. Or how'd you pronounce that? Sorry.
Campanale, yeah.
Campanale. I'm just imagining a household where the two kids were Nunzio and Vito. That is prime New
And they
Jersey
aren't
right
the only
there.
two. They've got a bunch of brothers spread out throughout the coaching landscape. Yes.
That's outstanding. I was going to ask you too. I mean, just trying to get an idea stylistically of what we're looking at between Collins and Angeli. My interpretation was that Collins is maybe a little bit more raw, but maybe has a little bit higher ceiling in terms of physical abilities. But Angeli, I mean, I remember him in that, I think it was the Orange Bowl against Penn State.
Yeah.
He's mobile too. I mean, he's got some athleticism. So I guess what's your take stylistically? Are they about the same, or would they be calling a different game plan for Collins versus Angeli?
So everyone I've talked to says Jeff Nixon is calling the offense the same for both of them. Now, so there might be a little bit more excitement for Collins because of how dynamic he can be with his legs. But you hit the nail on the head. No one really knows how good Ricky Collins is or can be outside of that facility. And he said it himself, like, LSU just did not give him enough chances to throw the football. Notre Dame gave Angeli chances. But, I mean, I talked to Dan Villar. He said, listen, Ricky came back from his hand injury and was throwing 65 with no issue. Ricky thinks he could top 75, 80 if he were to really try. So guy's got a strong arm. He's got some mobility to him. So it's one of those things where, to me, it's like Ricky's the more talented guy. Angeli might be the more prepared guy at the moment, if that makes sense. Like, he's got more snaps under center. He's got more experience. So that's what you kind of lean on with him. But as far as talent and ceiling, Ricky Collins is your guy. And, Fran's not asking me, but if I were to throw my 2 cents in there, I think Ricky is the face of your program. And since he has the higher ceiling, that would be my week 1 starter.
Yeah, I figure some of that has to be a strategy, maybe depending on how you really want to approach the season. And we'll get into the schedule here in a little while, but it is it's going to be a tougher road here in year 2 than it was in year 1. And so do you use this as a building year versus are you trying to, make sure you get back to a bowl game and want a little bit of a safer option, I guess, is something that has to be considered there if you're Fran Brown and that staff. I was going to ask you too, Javon. I've kind of gotten to the point with the extent of the transfer portal being leveraged for all these teams that I kind of can't keep track of who's coming and who's going everywhere. And it's really not helped by the fact that I think Syracuse is dead last in the ACC in returning production ratings, based on what Bill Connolly would do over at ESPN. Curious to get your take. I know that there's a couple key receivers that left, but just overall, what are we looking at in terms of key roster changes? Who are some of the important guys that left after last year, either graduation, transfer, whatever? And then who are some of the key pieces that are coming in that you expect to be big difference makers? And again, either transfer or even some of the impact freshmen that you could see happening.
So the loss of production is also a big reason why I say Collins, because I think with this team, you're kind of going to want a guy who can go out and make some plays himself, because you lost one of the best dual threat running backs in the country to the Jacksonville Jaguars in LaQuinn Allen Jr. You lost one of the best pass catching tight ends in the country, who Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman are going to love out there in LA, and Aronde Gadsden II. Trevor Pena. Syracuse had its pro day, and the scout from the Chiefs was asking Fran Brown, like, hey, man, why isn't he coming out in the draft? We like him. And now he's at Penn State. So that tells you what kind of year Trevor Pena wants to have and the aspirations that guy has and can attain. And so at the running back spot, it's going to be, in my estimation, by committee. Yasin Willis, Will Nixon, Malachi Coleman. They're probably going to Jayden Hart. They're probably going to cycle through those guys. Neither one of them alone can replace LeQuint's production. To be honest, I don't know if two of them can replace LeQuint's production. So running back, they took a big loss. Tight end with Gadsden. No one in that room can do what Aronde Gadsden did at Syracuse. Aronde had 2 900-yard seasons, one at tight end and one at wide receiver. That's just not Dan Villari. That's not David Clement. That's not Jamie Tremble yet. That's not Elijah Washington Baker yet. So there's a lot of production to replace that tight end. Now, receiver, they'll be fine. That's a track team at receiver. Daryl Gill actually runs on the track team. Boobie Johnson, another Miami Northwestern product, he can play. Emmanuel Ross can play. Justice Ross Simmons can play. And then they got Jonte Cook from Texas in the transfer portal. And, they are raving about that kid as a football player, as a teammate, as a locker room leader. I have not heard a bad word about Jonte Cook from anyone at Syracuse. And they retooled that offensive line. You got a guy like Austin Collins you add in there, and Zach Rice. So they did a good job of replacing everything but tight end and running back in the offseason. And, quarterback, there's automatically going to be a fall off. Kyle McCord became the single-season passing yards record holder in the ACC last year. Of course, there's going to be a drop-off there. But I think they're happy with what they've got on the center. The defensive side, linebacker was an issue. Went out and got Gary Bryant III from South Dakota to help plug up that spot. Edge rusher lost Fidel Diggs to the Saints, replaced him with David Reese from Cal. I'm hearing David Reese is doing good things. Plugged up the middle with Chris Thomas. Still got Tank Wilson over there. David Omara Piola is probably going to play the other edge. Their loss on the D-line was 2 young guys. So King Joseph Edwards is not going to be with Syracuse this season. And then that was a former 4-star recruit that they were big on. They believe in his potential a lot. Fran Brown said they hope they can get him back in January. And then freshman All-American Murad Watson got paid by Texas to the point that Fran Brown was happy for the kid once Murad called him. He's like, yeah, man, you got to take that. Like, go change your family's lives. But I think they're going to be fine on the interior. Help yourself at linebacker. On the back end, Deuce Chestnut, Devin Grant, Barry Buxton III. They're all a year older, all a year more experienced. They were already solid players. The youngest part of this team, and I'll be honest with you. So, grew up in Baltimore, Ravens fan, AFC North guy. So, I'm defense. If there's one area on the team that I do not want inexperience, it's at corner.
Mm-hmm.
That is Syracuse's most inexperienced position right now. So, Demetri Samuel Jr., who is supposed to be Fran Brown's Travis Hunter, is going to play a lot of defense this year, play a little bit of offense. He's going to be on one side, and most likely Davion Kerr is going to be on the other. His twins up there now, Davion Kerr. It's a real young and inexperienced group at corner. So those safeties, Grant, Chestnut, Buxton, and the nickel, they're going to be very important, and pass rush is going to be very important. They've got to do all they can to help those young guys. Now, over time, I think those guys are going to develop into being good players. This year is they've got to show me year. I expect teams to test those corners just a little bit to start off this season to see what they're made of, especially a Tennessee team with, Josh Heupel as its coach now. Granted, it's not like Nico Iamaleava is going to be under center this year. His comments at Media Day the other day, I don't want to get started on. But I expect teams to try to test Syracuse in the secondary for at least the first 3-4 weeks of the season.
Golly, I'm just now thinking about if you've got, rookie corners and it's like your first game is against Tennessee, that's a little bit like welcome to the Army, today's D-Day. Like,
yes.
What a way to start is against Tennessee in that passing attack. Goodness.
Yeah, I do not envy them at all. I would not want to be in those shoes. That is a welcome to Division I moment.
Yeah, to be sure. You talk about the changeover of personnel on offense, and it's basically rebuilding the passing attack, right? You talked about Rondé Gadsden is gone. Trebor Pena leaving when he did was really a kick in the gut. Like that sucks for Syracuse to have to live with. I'm curious to know your thought, or if there have been any comments made. What is this offense going to look like stylistically? Because last year it was 60% passing plays. It was, Kyle McCord throwing for almost 4,800 yards, all that. And then, as you kind of alluded to, it was LaQuint Allen was the sun, moon, and the stars in the run game, right? Like, he got a lion's share of the carries and all the yards and everything. There's nobody coming back with 40 carries other than, with Allen gone now. So I'm curious, have they indicated any sort of change in balance, or are they still looking to be kind of more of that pass heavy offense that we saw last year? Or is it just going to kind of depend on the quarterback situation? I'm curious to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so you mentioned it was a 60-40 split last year. In today's football, that's balanced. Jeff Nixon wants to stick to that balance. There's going to be, I would say, rely on more moving the pocket, a little more RPOs when Collins is in there. I tried my hardest to figure out how much two quarterback formations we're going to see this season. No one would bite on it. So that tells me we might see some, which is somewhat. I'm intrigued because Fran Brown was a guy who, once he names a starter, that's the starter until proven otherwise. He's not a platoon and, all right, this week you're the guy, then next week somebody else. Like, he's a one starter type of guy. I've got to say, if you've got two quarterbacks, you don't have one. So we'll see how that goes. But Jeff Nixon wants to stay balanced, move the pocket a little bit, get the quarterback run game involved a little more. But it's still going to be hand the ball off, play action, take some shots down the field, spread you out sometimes because there's too many playmakers in the wide receiver room not to go spread. So I expect a faster offense this season. I'll say that because they're going to have to find ways to see what this running backs room is made of, and I think dropping back is going to be their strongest strength this year. So I think you'll see a lot of, all right, go empty, spread them out, boom, 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 and then let's go 4 wide, get a running back here, catch, hold, draw, just a lot of stuff like that to really keep the defense on its toes. A lot of RPOs. So it'll be you'll have to move your eyes and have disciplined eyes as a defense guarding Syracuse this year.
Got it. That makes sense. Defensively, Javon, this was something that this team really struggled with last year. They finished 83rd in SP Plus on defense in particular. You talk about some of the new guys coming in to play corner in particular, some of the lost production. It still seems like by and large, a lot of the majority of depth is there for most of the defense. If I'm looking for improvements on defense, is that where I would start, is with that depth and the returning production, or is there anything else that gives you confidence in the defense to take a step forward in year 2?
I think improvement's going to come from, you got your safeties back. So that's an extra year of them. You got Tank Wilson to come back. David Amara-Piola comes back on the D-line. You got some experience in the portal with Chris Thomas and David Reese, proven players who are in their final years. Derek McDonald's another year in the defense. Anwar Sparrow is another year in the defense. Gary Bryant's a transfer who was terrific at South Dakota. And I talked to his high school coach because he went to school in my backyard of Lowell, Maryland. And that guy was under recruited. He was part of that class where COVID really killed their recruitment. Gary Bryant had no business being an FCS player. He should have been FBS all along. So I think there's a combination of returning experience and incoming experience via the portal that makes me believe that defense should be better this year, with the only question mark being the corners.
Right. Yep. Well, and as we said, again, they're going to have a really nasty welcome to the ACC, and not even really an ACC team, but welcome to big boy football here as they kick off the season playing against a pretty nasty Tennessee passing attack. And there might be a change up there in the quarterback situation. Obviously, as you mentioned, Nico Iamaleava not there, but either way, that offense is going to want to throw the ball and play vertically and really stress the secondary. So that will be interesting to see. That is just the beginning of what I think might be the hardest schedule in the ACC. I think Fran was very fortunate in year 1. I don't think that it was a particularly difficult schedule. Now, those games don't win themselves. Obviously Syracuse had to win those games, and that was good for them. But this year, we looked at it earlier on this podcast, and I think there's a scenario where Syracuse might be a double-digit underdog in every game they play away from the Carrier Dome. You start the season with Tennessee, you're at Clemson, you're at SMU, you're at Georgia Tech, at Miami, and at Notre Dame. Those are your road games. That is an absolute hell of a gauntlet to have to go through. You do get home games: UConn, Colgate, Duke, Pitt, North Carolina, and Boston College, all very winnable. Nice having those at home. But this schedule just sets up to be very treacherous, I think, and much more of a way than last year's schedule necessarily was.
It is very simple for Syracuse. Like the goal has to be, and they mentioned this at kickoff, go undefeated at home.
Yeah.
Boston College is a regional rivalry, and it's rivalry week. You've got to win it at home. This is Bill Belichick's first season in college football, and that Carolina roster isn't super talented, aside from Andrew Simpson, the Boise State transfer, who Syracuse wanted. Pitt, you got embarrassed the last year.
Mm-hmm.
Pride has to take over in that game, and Kyle Lewis has to get double teamed. Duke, it's a toss-up game. You want a good win on your schedule. Darian Mintz is a great addition for the Blue Devils. And I think Duke is kind of like that sweet spot of a job for Manny Diaz. Like, Temple was too low for him. Miami was too high for him. DC at Penn State was too low for him. I think head coach at Duke is like the perfect type of job for him. So that's going to be a fun duel. I mean, December 2018, Manny Diaz got the Temple job, kept Fran on staff, and then you blink your eyes and he's back in Miami as head coach. So just a connection between the coaches in that game. And then Colgate and UConn, you've got to win. You've got to win.
Yeah.
Fran's got tremendous respect for what Jim Moore is doing, but you've got to win that game. So their focus has to be going undefeated at home, leaving out of that neutral site game against Tennessee, who has the new quarterback, with a win. And then it's, hey, you beat Georgia Tech last year, do it again. You beat Miami last year, who, in my estimation, is going to be worse. Restrepo's gone, Cam Ward's gone, and Carson Beck is not Cameron Ward. I'll be honest with you. I like Mark Fletcher Jr., Chris Johnson Jr., but they're not Damian Martinez. Now, the two of them together is going to be more of a better replacement for Martinez than, your Sin Willis and Will Nixon together for LaQuint Allen. I will say that. But Miami is worse this year, in my opinion. You beat them last year, do it again. And then let's say Steve Angeli's the starter. Go show Marcus Freeman why you should have won that quarterback competition in the spring, So each one of these games, I think Clemson's the one where I'm like, good luck. I've got Clemson. I just turned in my preseason poll today. I've got Clemson in the top 6. I really am high on the Tigers this year. And SMU, Clemson, SMU, you got the two teams who went to the championship game last year. Duke was in the running with you. Miami was in the running with you. Pitt would have been in the running if Eli Holston never got hurt. So, like you said, it's a gauntlet schedule. Win at home. Find a way to get Tennessee. Find a way to get Georgia Tech. Miami's worse than they were last year, but you're worse than you were last year. So we'll see what that is. Good luck with Notre Dame and Clemson. And we'll see if SMU was lightning in the bottle or not. I don't think so. I've got respect for Rhett Lashley and Kevin Jennings. So, try to squeeze out 8. Just try to squeeze out 8. But that is like you said, that is a difficult schedule. That is one of the tougher conference slates in the country. Like, Syracuse's schedule makes you appreciate just how good ACC football is going to be this season and how good it's going to be in the years to come.
For those listening and hadn't quite put it together yet, that's 4 road games, or 4 games at least away from home. The Tennessee game is a neutral site game, but for all intents and purposes, that's 4 road games against playoff teams last year, and the 5th road game against a team that was like top 15, was on the graphic as they were announcing the playoff as like next 4 out, basically, with Miami. So that's what you're up against, and you don't get the benefit of playing at home for any of them. So,
and one of the best offenses in the country in Georgia Tech on the road at Bobby Dodd Stadium. Oh man, the scheduling gods were not kind to Syracuse.
Yeah, this is maybe the nastiest whiplash of schedule from one year to the next. Certainly in this conference, but one of the nastiest I've ever seen. This is wild. So, gonna be interesting to see kind of how year 2 goes after a strong year 1 for Fran Brown. Javon, I don't know if you're in a place with your role here. Are you able to give me a record prediction of kind of what you look at this schedule and what you think Syracuse might end up at?
I can give you a betting line. Yeah.
I want to say Vegas had 5.5 was the number.
I'm not mad at that number. I take the over. If I were an odds maker, right, I want to see just how risky you are with your money. I'd move the line up to 6.5. I'd move it up 1 game just because I think UConn, Colgate wins. I think Carolina's a win. I think Boston College is a win because I'm still not sure about their quarterback situation over there. And I don't know. I'll be honest with you. The whole Tommy Castellanos in Florida State marriage, I'm not a big fan of it. So I think Mike Norvell might have another long season in front of him, but that's neither here nor there. So that's 4. And then with Tennessee and Georgia Tech being possibilities, that's 5 right there. So the line's at 5.5. And then the thing is, Duke's possible. You beat Miami last year. So that's another half. So that's why I bump it up to 6.5.
Makes sense. I do wonder. I have a hard time seeing Syracuse not pick off one of these road games. Like, I tend to think that they're going to have a day where they put it all together and they knock off somebody as an underdog there, and it very well could be my Yellow Jackets. That's very much on the table. I will concede that for sure. Javon, this has been awesome. Really appreciate your time here. Very informative. So thank you so much for joining. Can you want to let the people know real quick where they can go find your stuff?
Absolutely. Syracuse.com, and I'm Javon Edmonds 45 on all social media. So I've got you covered with all things Syracuse football this season. It is my mission and goal to get the information that you want. So I'm very active. DM me or email me on my company site, jedmonds@syracuse.com, with anything you want to know. And I normally go try and track that stuff down for you guys. My replies are open. I'm not a fan of the closed replies on social media. Like, hey, if you're going to post, take the backlash from it, man. So, as Coach Prime says out in Boulder, I'm not hard to find. So just let me know something.
Javon wants to smoke. That's what I'm hearing. Javon, thank you so much. We'd love to have you back on sometime soon.
Absolutely. You've got my email. I'll pass my phone number along. Anytime you need me, I'm a call away.
Much appreciated, my man. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
All right. Once again, that was Javon Edmonds of Syracuse.com, talking all things Syracuse athletics, not just football. So go follow him there and on Twitter and everywhere else. We are going to get out of here. We're going to come back and record some more previews for all the other teams in the ACC. So keep it tuned here, Spotify, Apple, wherever you find your podcasts. We are there. For that guy, Mr. Javon Edmonds, I am Joey Weaver. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll talk to you again very, very soon. Until next time, go Orange and go ACC.